welcome back to StangRi-La Garage. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe if you're a new watcher. This is going to be all about my 63 Falcon right over here. One we took on a trip to Indy a couple weeks ago. It's a long history, and might as well get started at the beginning. Anyway, this is a 1963 Ford Falcon that I originally bought as my first car way back in 1986 when I was 15 years old. Needless to say, it was a little bit of a project car back then, and when I got it, it was just a rolling car, pretty much a project. Didn't have an engine in it, and me and my dad drug it home, literally, with just a tow bar, and pulled it across from Illinois over into Iowa, brought it home, stuck it in the backyard at his house, and that's where it sat for a little while, all the way through high school, unfortunately. And then I went off to school in Wyoming to actually go to school to do body work because I wanted to restore and fix up this car. Well, did that, and in the process my dad started his own mechanic shop in his garage. Well, he needed the room, so this car went into storage. He had a storage garage, so it went off into storage while I was in school. Graduated from school, came home, started working, started doing life things, you know, and it just was sitting in storage this whole time. And a couple years went by, I bought my own house, and then I got married and had a baby, and the whole time this car's still sitting in storage. Well, flash forward to 2004, and the storage garage it was sitting in that my dad had all these years, the house got sold and we needed to get cars out of there. So I brought it home. I didn't really have anywhere to put it. I just had a one-car garage that I had another car sitting in. So it sat outside by my garage for about 6 months, I guess, or something. And after a while, I was like, I just can't let it sit there like that. It's going to deteriorate and rust into the ground. So I figured, well, I'll sell it. So a friend of mine had a Falcon. There's my dog. There's Shadow. Hi, Shadow. Had a Falcon that he was looking for parts for. Hope it's not too windy out here. It's a little windy, but anyway, I told him I'd sell him the car, and he could use whatever he wanted off it, or use it or something or whatever. Well, he bought it, got it, started looking it over, and he's like, well, it's too nice to cut up. So he pretty much turned around and sold it immediately after that. And then I was pretty much forgot about it. Well, flash forward again, 10 years down the road, 2014, a guy I was working with at the time was telling me his story about this guy he knew that had this Falcon and wanted it painted or whatever. And so I told him my story about this car, and he was like, well, he might even want to sell it. I'm like, I don't need one. But anyway, long story short, he ended up showing me a picture of it. And lo and behold, it was this car. It was this old car. So I got in touch with the guy and went and looked at it, and it looked pretty much exactly the way it was when I sold it to a friend of mine. So I went and looked at it, and yeah, sure enough, it was my car. And of course I was falling in love all over again. But again, I didn't really need a car. I had stuff going on, so I told the guy, well, yeah, it's cool. And he wanted way too much money for it, another thing. But so I just left it at that. Well, then come to find out, a couple months later, my lovely wife was trying to put a deal together to buy the car as a surprise for me. And on her birthday in April, she came to me and told me this plan. And for a whole lot of things I'm not getting involved with, but she couldn't make it happen. So she felt terrible. On her birthday, she was going to give me this car. So I'm like, how can I let that go? So I decided right then and there, the car's got to come back home no matter what. So I ended up got hold of the guy. It took another 3 months, 4 months almost, to make the deal happen. So I didn't even end up bringing it home until December of that year, 2014. And basically, me and my dad did the same thing. We drug it home because it wasn't running. Luckily, it wasn't quite as far away this time, but got it home to my garage here. I finally had some place to put it, and kind of just started figuring out what I was going to do with it. Well, first thing I wanted to get running. It had an engine in it, but it was questionable. I didn't know anything about it. The guy had just kind of stuffed it in there, had an automatic behind it, which I didn't want. And so I got it going and seeing if it was even worth messing with. So once I did that, I found out the motor was pretty much garbage. And most of the work that had been done was a complete hack job and needed to be redone. So that motor came out. And I tried to kind of patch it up and put that motor back in and fix a few things in the process. And put the 5-speed in it at that time. And drove it a little bit that way, but the motor, it just was not good. It had very low oil pressure and was leaking real bad. But I drove it just sparingly, just around a couple places. But then I got serious, and through a gift from my dad, he had an 86 302 5-liter that he had bought out of an 86 Thunderbird that was wrecked way back in the day, and it was a 5,000 mile motor that he had sitting under his bench for all these years. Well, he's like, you can have it. So I got that engine, put it together, swapped it out with the older one that was junk, and got it running again. And then I started doing some body work. I did the rear wheel wells, fixed a little bit of the floorboards were pretty rusty, so I patched those up. And let's see, what else did I do? Well, I'll show you the pictures, but as you can see, there's not a whole lot. There isn't even any carpet in it. So, and these seats are out of a 95 Mustang. And this tachometer was the tachometer that was in the car when I first bought it back in 1986. I had taken it off the car when I was a kid, and it was stuck away somewhere in my dad's basement. Well, when I bought the car back, he brought that over to me, saying, you might need this. So that tack is back in the car where it was many years ago. Because the guy I bought it from originally, it had been raced a little bit. It had a 289 in it from what I remember, that he had sitting on a stand when I bought the car. And he was like, oh, I can throw that in if you want. And I was like, nah, my plans were different. I originally had, not long after I bought this thing, was going to put I found a 1970 351 Cleveland I was going to put into it. Well, that never happened, obviously, but and I sold that engine many years later. But the car itself is actually originally a 6-cylinder car, but when I had it before, never had an engine in it or nothing. But as it sits now, it's got the 86 5-liter, which is basically stock except for an HO cam, and a T5 out of a 95 Cobra Mustang that I had bought for another project that I never used, but I just happened to have it. Anyway, I'll show some pictures of all the stuff that had been done with it. There's some video. We've taken it drag racing where it's the best it's done as a 1414 in the quarter. It's been on a dirt track, Vintage Torque Fest. It went around the dirt track there and the dirt drags in the front straightaway. It's been to Indianapolis, like you've seen in the last video. We took it on a little stint power tour not long after I got it going. Didn't do the whole thing because I wasn't real sure about it yet, but yeah, and I'll go into more detail on some of the other just features on the car, but that's kind of the general overview of it. So it's got an 8-inch rear end, 355 gear, traction lock that I put in, transmission I put in, engine I put in. I did all the body work, the paint. I saved as much of the original paint as I could, blended in the body work in the wheel wells here. I basically copied the front fender line, welded it all in. There's very little filler actually in there. It's mostly metal, and the whole bottom of the quarter here was this was all rusted out in some of the pictures you'll see, and I made this all by hand, all metal. It's all metal. Same thing on the other side. I had to fix a frame rail underneath where the spring shackle goes through. That was rusted out. I made that. Like I said, I patched the floors, but it's still got, I mean, it's far from perfect, as you can see. It's got character and patina, whatever you want to call it. There's still a little bit of a rust hole there in the rocker panel. I might just leave that there. I don't know. This fender here was one of the first things I did, as you'll see in one of the pictures. When I got it back from the guy that had it, it had some, I'll just say, creative artwork on this fender, but that was one of the first things I got rid of because I couldn't stand it. But other than that, like the roof, I think is original paint. The deck lid is original paint. All inside the trunk is original paint, and I'll show you some of that a little bit here. But that'll get us started. Okay, well, here's the engine, obviously. And like I said, this is the 86 5-liter. It just has carburetor, 600 CFM Holley on there, and an old Wyand intake. I don't even remember where it came from. Other than that, as you can see, there is just a alternator. There's no power steering, no other accessories whatsoever, no power brakes. That master cylinder is off a I don't remember the year, but I know it's an F-150 of some vintage, newer style. The headers are the cheapest ones I could find, brand new. There are Flowtech brand that are for 64, 65 Mustang that I ended up modifying these back to header tubes here to make them work. I basically had to switch them around. This one used to go that way and that one used to go that way, but I had to change them around to make them fit around the steering box there. And they actually have I made a slip joint, and they're individual, so I can take them apart and they come out. I can get them out this way. But the other side is absolutely factory made. I didn't have to do anything with this side to make them fit. They just went right in. The only other modification I did was on the shock towers a little. I don't know if you can see right where this one is. I trimmed this one back there. Same thing on the other side. And right down in here, it's kind of hard to see. This has been massaged here, flatten that out some. That was one of the modifications the previous owner had just kind of hacked, and I made it look a little better. Aluminum radiator, that was an eBay special, works really good, thing never gets hot. Got an electric fan on it. There really wasn't any room for anything else on the backside, as you can see. My little custom overflow bottle. People think that's cool. Like I say, it just has the original manual drum brakes, which is a little sketchy sometimes, and eventually that will be changed. But a couple years ago, I found a guy, he had some bumpers for sale, and this was a rechrome bumper, still in the package, real nice bumper. Back bumper was a real nice original shape one that were way better than the ones that were on it. And I got those for $100, so that was a pretty good deal. But the next thing I wanted to, one of my biggest achievements on this car are these front wheels. And I get questions about them all the time. And I guess I'll give you the whole rundown on those, and I got pictures I'll throw in here. But these are originally Fox, Mustang, Thunderbird, Turbo Coupe, spare, Space Saver spare wheels, tires, whatever I call them. Obviously not the same tires, but the wheels are. And they originally were solid, just solid aluminum wheel. Well, I had them for years and years. I had them on my other, my Mustang too for a while. And then I got this car, and I had some different wheels on the Mustang, so these were just laying around. And I thought, what can I do with those? So I had them on there, how they were, just solid for a while. And I always wanted to do something in the middle there, like what you see. Well, since I had bought the back wheels from a guy. I had ones for the front, but they were 5-lug, and this was still 4-lug. So even to make these 4-lugs fit this bolt pattern, there is a spacer, or not an adapter and a spacer in there, because it's a different 4-lug pattern from an old Ford 4-lug to a Fox Mustang style. So anyway, I started planning and thinking how I could do it, and I mocked it up with some just cardboard or construction paper, whatever you call it, made the design, see if it would work. And then I just dove in the, as you'll see in the pictures, and with a hole saw, a drill, cut off wheel, die grinder, and a file, I cut those slots in those wheels by hand. They've been on the car, what, 4 years now, at least, that way, I think. I wasn't sure how they would hold up, because there's not a whole lot of, I mean, they're pretty thick, but it's pretty thin between here, so I wasn't sure if they were going to crack or what. But say they were on the car when I took it on the dirt track. Haven't done anything weird. After I did the slots, put them back on the car, took it out and drove it, and these wheels do not have one ounce of weight, wheel balance weight at all on them, either one of them. And there isn't a shake or vibration or nothing off them, so I'm pretty impressed by that. From our trip to Indianapolis, I had to change out this one over here, which I haven't got around to fixing yet, obviously, you can tell. I still got to mess with the front end. It's got a little well, it's worn for one thing, and I'm still trying to decide what I want to do with the front end. If I'm just going to rebuild the 6-cylinder stuff that's there for now, which I probably will. It's a whole lot cheaper. No matter what I end up doing, it's going to cost me $1,000. But let's say the rear tires, or rear wheels, are 15 by 8.5s. And I'm not entirely, I think the back spacing was 3 3/4, if I remember right, something like that. 3 1/2, 3 3/4. With a 295 50 15. It fills it out pretty good. I've got air shocks on the back because, yeah, it will come down and hit the tire here. But they stick out just enough, not too much. I didn't want them hanging out there too far. And you've got, you know, enough clearance here on the inside. Could actually come in a little if I had different wheels, but you can see the fuel pump sticking out over there. The exhaust comes down there, traction bars, which were another feature that were on this car when I first bought it and that I had taken off, that were in my dad's basement. And once I got the car back, they went back on the car. Oh, yeah. My custom center console is an old tackle box, and it's removable. There's latches on the sides here that I can take the whole thing out of there. But it's my center console. I put my spare stuff in here for the road trips or whatever. Put a cup holder in it even. That's another cup holder there I made out of an old can. Kind of got a rat rod thing going on, if you want to call it that. I don't know. Had Big Daddy down in Garland signed the glove box lid there a few years ago. That was pretty impressive. I had to just made a little shifter extension, or what do you want to call it there, coming out of the tunnel. I made the tunnel, basically had to remake all the tunnel. Of course the floors have been patched up. They weren't really bad, they were just kind of down on these corners. The toe boards were rusty, but the back end, that's all original back here. Original door panels, original rust on the inside here. Glass is all original as far as I know. I could use a windshield, but I did put new weather stripping on it. Oh yeah, the name. That was my first hand lettering job, officially. And of course, I get asked about the name and people see that and they get a chuckle sometimes. Of course, it has a couple different meanings, but for me it was about Falcon time to get the car on the road, you know. It took me 30 years, but I got it. So I kind of like that twist in the story there. So hopefully that'll give you the history on the car, say all the pictures and the video I'll combine in here. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I've got more stuff coming in the title of these videos. You see a Mustang 2, and that was basically my third car I ever bought. I never did get rid of that one. I still got that one. So that one's going to be on the channel. And that's kind of where the name StangRi-La came from. But that's a whole other story I'll get into later. Anyway, if you like what you see, please stay tuned. I got more stuff coming. Like and subscribe, share, whatever. And I'll see you next time.
care.